Hello everyone, so welcome back to my episode 2 of the Mern Stack series that I'm doing right now. So on this video we will be setting up different routes for our to-do list. Basically our route is going to focus on CRUD functionality, so we should be able to do the activities like create, read, update and delete based on these routes. So we're just gonna set up a regular route, and we're not gonna focus on database on this episode, which will come on next episode. So all of them, so as soon as we set up the routes, the only thing left regarding the to-dos would be to hook them up with the database. And later on in the series, we want to have a user and authentication and authorization so that we can make these routes private, but for the purpose of this episode we're just going to make them public because we haven't set up the users yet. So without further ado, let's get started on the video. So this is the progressive series, right? This is the progress that we have made so far. We just have one route which just sends out the hello world as one tag. And on my right, I have a Postman running. So I assume you also installed the Postman as I mentioned on the first episode. So what Postman allows us to do is it allows us to make various network requests. You can use various methods, like right now it's defaulting to GET, but you can use a whole bunch of HTTP methods. So in order to check this route right here, which we have, what we need to do is we can enter the request URL right here. As it is already there, we're gonna run our server on 3005, and as soon as I hit it, it says cannot connect. It is because I have not started the dev server yet. So as soon as I do that, if I send that request, it should send out the hello world. So it's working as expected. So now for our routes, we want to have 4 routes basically. So one is going to be to get the list of to-dos, one is going to be to create the list of to-dos, one is going to be to update the to-dos, and the last one is going to be to delete the to-dos. So if we can just write those routes on this index.js file, but we want to make our index.js file as clean as possible. So what we're going to do is on the source directory, you want to create a folder called routes, and inside that routes we're going to create a file called todos.routes.js file. So we're going to put all of our to-do related routes in this file. Now in order to, as soon as we make some changes here regarding the routes, we want to grab those over on this index.js file and make a use of them over here. So in order to do that, I'm going to get rid of this route from here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use app.use. I'm going to use a middleware, and as you know, it takes 2 arguments. One is going to be the route, and the second one is going to be the callback function with request and response arguments, right? Let's just leave the second argument as blank for now. I'll show you guys in a second what do I mean by that. And for the routes, I want to do /rest/todos. REST is here just to make sure you know this is the REST API, and to-dos because we're dealing with to-dos. Now, if I go to todos.routes, over here I want to basically create all of the routes, right? So I'm gonna have to import few packages over here. One is going to be Express itself, and Express. So the other one is going to be router. So it's going to come from express.router with the uppercase R. So once we import that one, we can make a use of this router that we just declared. So the way to, let's say for example we are making a route for GET request. So what we can do is we can do router dot get. It takes two arguments. One is going to be the route itself, and the second one is a callback function which takes request and response. And inside that, what we can do is we can handle the response or request, like whatever we want. So let's say if the user falls onto this get route, we're going to add the URL in a second. And what we can do is we can do response dot. I want to add the status as well. I can do 200 dot, and I want to send out the JSON, let's say. So in order to send the JSON as a response, what you can do is do dot JSON, and we're going to send the object with the message of saying, which will say get to-dos. Let's save that one. And in order to make a use of the JSON while you're sending the request, what you need to do is you want to go to index.js file, and inside the index.js file, I want to make a use of a couple of middlewares. So one is we want to do app.use express.json. What this will allow us to do is it will allow us to deal with JSON objects. That's why we need that middleware. And another thing is we want to do app.use express.url. I think it's URL encoded. It's a function, and it takes a options within the object, and we need to pass extended equals to false. So once you do that, the purpose of adding this over here is so that we can read the form from whenever we are handling the form related data from UI or from the client side. So once we import that on index.js file or call that on index.js file, what it allows us to do is it allows us to use these middlewares all over the project. So that's why we want to put this on index.js file. Now over here, we didn't add that request URL. Now we want to add it. Let's see what should be the request URL. Here, what we want to do is whatever our host name is. Right now, it's localhost 3005. So after that host name, we want to have this URL, which would be /rest/todos. Since we have already mentioned the route over here, the only thing we can only thing we need to do here is just do /, and that's pretty much it if we want to make a use of that same route. And in order to make a use of this route on index.js file, what we need to do is we need to export this basically. And the way to export this on common.js is you want to do module.exports equals to, and you want to export the router from here. Now we have exported the router. Now what we can do on index.js file is we can import that one. We can make a use of that one. Let's say I can say something like to-dos route. Let's name is it's plural. To-dos routes equals to require, and I want to go ./routes/todos.routes. Since we have already added a request URL over here, the second thing we need to pass is this to-dos routes over here. Now, if we did everything correctly, now every time we hit this endpoint or this route, we should see the message saying get to-dos. Okay, let's test this one out. So localhost 3005 is our host name, and if we add that, make sure I remove that extra slash from there. Okay, now let's send it, as you can see, I can see a message of get to root, so it means that it's working as expected. Now we want to do the same thing for all three operations. Let me copy this and do paste one time, two, and one more time. So that should take care of all four routes for us. One is going to be, as I mentioned, it's going to be a get request. And now let's say in order to add the to-dos, what you want to do is you want to use the HTTP post method. So the way to do that is you're just going to do router.post. It's going to take request response. It's going to be the same thing, but over here instead of get, what we can say is add to-dos. So now on the Postman, if I change the request method to post and send it, as you can see, it says add to-dos. Now the third one is going to be updating the to-dos, but this one is a little bit tricky because one thing is simple. For updating, we're going to use the HTTP put method. So that's for sure. So then let's make that change right away. We're going to use put method. But let me give you an example. Let's say if I'm saying to you, all right, you need to change this basically, and you will ask me a question saying, all right, you didn't give me like enough information. So if you want me to change anything, you need to specify any sort of properties of what you want to like make a change to, right? So over here, that's what we will be asking from the request URL as a params. And what we will do is, as soon as we get the request for update or delete, we will ask the ID of that specific to-do from the user so that we know, all right, I need to update this or I need to delete that. So the way to use the dynamic params in routes is all you need to do is after this slash, put colon in there and just add ID. So now, as soon as you add that ID, we will have the link to this ID, and we're going to use that ID to make changes to our database later on. And this will be not get to-dos, this will be update to-dos. And for deleting, we're going to use the delete function. It should be delete. And as you might have guessed it, we also need ID in this case, and ID is going to be dynamic. And now for this one, it's going to be delete to-dos. Okay, let's test all of our endpoints out. Okay, I'm doing get request. It says get to-dos. It's working. I do post request. It says add to-dos, so it's working. Now let's do put for update. Let's send it. Okay, as you can see, it says 404 not found. The reason is what it's saying is, all right, it's trying to make a request to this URL with the method of put, but when it comes here, it doesn't find that route anymore because we are expecting a ID within the param. So that's why what you need to do is you need to include the param within the request URL. So let's say in this case, I'm sending out 123, and if I send it, as you can see, it says update to-dos, which is what we expect. Now if we do the delete and send it, it says delete to-dos. So all of our routes are working as expected. And okay, so what are we missing here? Okay, see, although like all of our routes are set up, but this code looks a little bit messy, so we want to clean it up. So now what we need to do is, because right now it's just one line of code, but later on when we move along with the series, what's going to happen is all of the logic to interact with the database and handling all like whole bunch of things is going to go here, and this file will get pretty messy. So the correct way to do it is underneath the source directory, you want to create a folder with the name controllers, and inside that I will create a file with name todos .controller.js. Inside this, we're going to have all of this controller logic basically, which is going to handle all of the major heavy, which is going to do heavy lifting for us. We're going to create those on the separate functions. Now here I'm going to say something like get to-dos. It's going to be a function, and basically all of the contents, let me just get rid of it. So get to-dos is basically going to deal with, as you might have guessed, get to-dos, which is right here, right? So all I need to do is copy this code. I'm going to cut it, come here, paste it right there. Now our get to-dos is done. Now I'm going to have one more function with add to-dos. So this will deal with this post request. So I can copy this second argument from here and put it right there. Now another function is going to be update to-dos, and for that one I'm going to copy this block, come back here, paste it right there, and the last one is going to be delete to-dos. I can come here. Okay, let's see where I'm copying at. Okay, and cut that and put it right there. Now we have separated all of the logic for the controller on the separate file. All we need to do now is I can do module.exports equals to, and copy that, and then get to-dos is done, add to-dos. Now I also need update to-dos, and I also need and delete to-dos. So I'm going to simply copy everything from here because I'm going to need that on routes file. On the import statement, I'm going to come here, and since we are exporting as object from here, we can simply destructure those here, and I will paste the code that I just copied earlier, and we're gonna get that from require. Okay, where am I right now? So I think I'm gonna go back one step and go to controllers and slash to-dos controllers. All right, now we have all of these functions here. All we need to do is just copy them and paste, copy and paste basically. So it's gonna go to post update, is gonna go to put, and the last one is delete. Okay, as you can see, we managed to string, like bunch of the code out of the routes file and move that logic to controller. So now on the next episode, when we're going to be dealing with database, all of our database logic is going to go here. So we have like clear path of like what's going on which file. I think we are done with the. You know what? Let's test those endpoints first, because we might have messed up somewhere. I hope not. Okay, let's test the get works. Let's test post works as well. For put, make sure I pass the ID. Update works as well, and for delete, yep, delete works as well. So now we're pretty much like done with our routes file too. So the only time we're gonna touch this route file is whenever we are about to make all of these routes are private. So what do I mean by that private? So right now, if anyone gets access to this endpoint, I mean, right now it's in localhost, right? Let's say you deploy your backend, and if anyone gets access to this, like endpoint, they will be able to, like make a call to your, basically call to your route, right? They can make a bunch of calls. So we want to avoid that. We want specific users to like get access to this endpoint. So we're going to do that once we set up our authentication, and once authentication is done, we're going to make these routes private so that we can authorize the users basically, and we're going to do that using JSON web tokens, and we will include that in the future videos for this series. So I think our basic route setups are done for to-dos, and as we are not ready yet to set up the routes or set up the logic for the users, uh, I assume this should be it, because I don't want to make like lengthy videos too, because I want to make sure like we are handling bits by bits. So I will end this video I think right here. So for the next video, what you want to do is you want to set up a database account on cloud, sorry, I forgot the name. Basically, I think I'll just include the link over here. Like I don't know, it's not coming on top of my head for some reason. Yeah, you want to set up that account for MongoDB, which is going to be a cloud-based database we're going to be using. It's going to be a free tier. You don't even have to put your credit card in there, and it's going to be plenty of like spaces, and it's going to be really good for like small tutorials or like your like testing purpose. Yeah, we're going to be working on the database on the next episode. So I think I'll end the video here. If you guys enjoy the content, don't forget to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you hit that notification bell. And I will catch you guys on the next video. Thanks.